Well, good evening, folks. It's the real Captain Kirk here. It's the 10th of September, 2022. We're live from One Bethlehem Plaza here in downtown Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Folks say, why do you say the real Captain Kirk? And I say, because I was back in the day. I'd like to tell a fun story here, actually. I call it the day the general saved the queen. Met this famous general, General Stormin Schwarzkopf. We were both stationed at MacDill Air Force Base, CENTCOM, back in the day, some 32 years ago. But again, forever changed how I think conversations with him in terms of how we do year-ahead weather. But more importantly, was the day the last time we met was the day he was knighted by the Queen of England. I'll save that story again, but it's the day the general saved the Queen. Let's first start here with the last week world summer here. So this big map are trends versus last year on a retail calendar ending tonight. Here in the U.S., hot, again, 1.4 warmer than last year, warmest in 10 years, second warmest in 37 years. Haven't said this much, 63% wetter than last year, still 16th driest, but at least wetter. Real cold spots were there in Russia, coldest in 26 years, so very cold across Russia. Australia's winter's coming to an end, coldest in 27 years, well below average there. They've had a cold winter for sure. Perhaps trends versus average or inset left there. Need to watch the tropics. We already had a system actually rare hit Southern California, tropical storm K. So that was brought some near hurricane force winds to the high mountains to the east of San Diego and some flooding rain down there. Bermuda dodged a bullet with major Hurricane Earl. Fortunately, that right front deadly quadrant was off the island, so they didn't get that at all. So again, they're used to these systems, but fortunately, they did not take a direct hit. Model imagination here for late in the period next week, but need to watch this. Again, 'tis the season. It is the peak of the next couple months of the hurricane season. And it shows a flare-up potentially heading in the Caribbean and toward the Gulf. We'll see again, but need to watch this because we still believe we're going to get hit. Droughts end in floods, and the floods are hurricanes this time of year. So need to watch that as we go through the core season here the next couple months. This week ending 17 September here in the U.S., about 1.4 cooler than last year. Still sixth warmest in 37 years. Cool spots will be there in the Ohio Valley, Southeast. West Coast is dramatically cooler. Thank goodness. They power outages and power rolling blackouts and whatnot. So again, much cooler for them. So the heat wave's over. Still 63% drier nationally, number one driest in 37 years. So again, La Nina-like conditions across the world continue. Meteorologist said summer ended 31 August, but sun says it ends here 22 September at 9:04. So again, a few more days of summer and then fall's coming. This first week with some fall weather, 24 September in terms of, again, 2 days of fall in this mix here. The weather's certainly not cooperating, 4.1 warmer than last year, second warmest in 37 years, so much above average national temperatures. There's a cool spot. It's still a little bit cooler there in the west, so not scorching hot. We'll see if it's really this dry, 91% drier than last year, number one driest in 37 years. I think there's going to be more rain there in the Gulf Coast southeast with tropical threats. So this is probably a little underdone for the southeast, but again, so watch the tropics for that week. We just aggregate these trends on the world scale here, week ending 24 September, 2 weeks. Warm across North America, warm Western Europe, cool Eastern Europe, cool there in Moscow, Russia, Southwest Russia, still cool in Australia as they start to enter their spring season. We'll end here with our story here again. So again, several walks here with the general. Again, forever changed how I think as a scientist in terms of year-ahead weather. I know that sounds crazy, but he was kind of the catalyst for changing how we think in terms of statistics, climate cycles, just a different approach to altogether of predicting weather a year ahead. It was actually the fourth time I met him, was the last time I met him on active duty, was 20 May 1991. It was the day he was going to be knighted by the Queen of England after Desert Storm. I was on duty, the mid-shift, at 3 in the morning. In comes the general and says, a little sleepy, but I said, well, good morning, General, sir. And he says, well, I'm not a sir yet. He was being knighted, so I guess that's the customary way you would greet a knighted person. He was just looking for an update that morning because he was going to be right there in our hangar, literally 5 feet away from where we were talking. It was where he was going to be knighted in Hangar 3 at MacDill Air Force Base. He says, just looking for an update. And I says, well, General, sure, the sea fog will move out about 3 minutes before the Queen gets out of limousine. Sun will break out. It'll be a beautiful ceremony. I said, but very slippery right as the sea fog's lifting out, kind of misty morning. And he says, well, thank you, Lieutenant. And he says, and I just said, God bless you, sir. And he says, and to you. And that was the last time we talked on active duty. Well, I didn't get the rest of the story that day as to what happened. Queen basically came in that day on a yacht, a British yacht. I think it was Britannic was the yacht. And then a limo to MacDill Air Force Base in our hangar. And then that's where she knighted him in the hangar there. Met him again as a civilian back in 2007. And I said, General Sir, I said, I know you don't remember me. And he says, well, actually, Lieutenant, I do. And he says, "Let me tell you the rest of the story with the Queen." And that was the first words out of his mouth. I thought it was pretty funny. He didn't know this, but apparently the Queen likes to keep scrapbooks. So as he was told by the Queen that when she got out of the limo, she slipped and almost could have broken a leg, whatever, broke a hip. It was going to be a bad day as she was as she was about to knight the general. And the general, I basically, was told by the entourage, you can't touch her, you can't do this, you can't do that, all the rules prior. Of course, as she's slipping out of the limousine, he, grabs her and puts her beautifully on the tarmac with the umbrella in hand. It was like a swan move. And it was the day he saved the Queen. I mean, because she could have seriously injured herself getting out of the limousine. He didn't know the rest of the story until many years later when he was met her again in London, apparently. And she likes to make scrapbooks. And so she told the general, she showed the general the scrapbook that she had made. Well, on that trip home from MacDill Air Force Base, her entourage got rid of all the photos of the general touching her and saving her and pivoting her, and she's like, "I want those photos." Even though they were considered inappropriate because, he basically grabbed her around the waist and saved her from slipping and falling. She made this beautiful scrapbook. Apparently that was one of her passions, was to life events. In any event, that was the day the general saved the Queen. So God bless both, obviously deceased here, but, God bless the Queen. And again, it was a memorable day. I do remember it very well, some 31 years ago. So with that, folks, now you know the rest of the story. We hope you have a great week, and we will be back here again this time next week.